we will get to Scilab after we go through basics of Excel, and then we will go to Scilab interface, how to arrange the layout, and then do some very basic familiarization where what is, how to use each of the toolboxes and all. All right, so let us get started with Excel. Excel or any other spreadsheet calculator you have. If you can open it, you will get by default a blank spreadsheet. Okay, let us proceed in that case. So I'll just take you through very quickly the Excel part. Even if you have not heard of Excel, you can just open it. It is very simple interface. Basically, it's a spreadsheet calculator, as we call it, where you have each of these cells, and you have many of those depending upon the RAM of your computer and the version of Office. You have huge number of rows and cells. Yeah? I just navigated to the each extremity. We usually don't need that. So each of these cells is actually it can work in two ways. One, it can store data. It can serve as a memory location, as well as it can take formula in it. It can take programming as well. So for example, if I put some numbers, so I have put 3 numbers here. So it is storing these numbers in each of these cells. Yeah? If I put a formula, say simple addition of these 3. So the way we do it is put a equal to plus plus. Yeah. So what this means is this cell D4, as we refer to it, D and 4. So what it means is column D and row 4, row number 4. So this cell actually has a formula. Although you see a number displayed there, this is a formula which you can actually see if the inputs are changed, the number there will change. Yeah. I know for most of you this might be too beginner level, but just bear with me for 5 minutes. If I change the numbers, this will happen. The basic punctuations are same. Equal to, plus, minus, slash is divide, and star is multiplication. So I can also do other operations, divide or multiply. And there is also power of. So power means say 5 power 3. I want to cube 5. I can do this. So this is basically 6 on your keyboard, at least on the Windows keyboards. The number 6 will have this in shift function. So that will cube it. If I want to square it, I'll just change the second argument to 2 and it will square it. There are many other functions. If you want to explore them, you can go to formulas on the top bar if you follow me. And there you will have all these functions available. You can look them up. There are many. Even I am not familiar with 100% of this. Okay, so this is a basic manipulation. What we do use this for is some basic calculations, like we will see in battery pack sizing or balancing or trade-off analysis sometimes can also be done. There are analysis add-ins available in Excel as well. So we will do these very basic stuff in Excel or spreadsheet calculator, no macros, nothing. So you have a bunch of things here. The first home, it usually has a bit of everything, all the tools. You can format the cells, you can format the number in the cell, you can put conditional formatting. So you can put the biggest number in green and the smallest number in blue. You can put that. Yeah, or you want to do the other way around, smaller number in green and bigger number in red. So all those things it is possible to do. You can explore this on time. You can also set rules where you can say, for example, everything more than greater than 25, you can set a format saying it will have the font or the fill red and maybe the font as white. So you can sample here what will happen if something is greater than 25 and put that. So you can see 33 has become red. If I change this to 45, it will also become red. You can also do sorting. So for sorting, let me just created a list here. And in this list, I can actually go to sort and filter. I can apply filters also, or I can go to sort and I can sort them by column D, E, or F. So D, smallest to largest. So it's possible to do that. Because it retains the formula, you are going to get errors. If this is plain numbers, so I will do that now. I have copied these and I can paste special as values here. Instead of the formula, I will just paste special as values. Yeah. So these are now numbers. These are formulae. These are formulae and these are numbers. Okay. So now if I sort them, okay, I can sort the other way around also. Yeah. I will not go through the formatting and all. We will do that when we use the Excel itself. There is one more important thing we should know in Excel is plotting. So let me see if I can bring in some data. Okay, I have bunch of major data here. Let me bring some of that here. Okay. So you can add a worksheet here by clicking on this plus. By default, one sheet will be there. Okay, copy the labels. So you can actually you can actually hide the columns as well. In this case, when I pasted them, they were already hidden columns. You can hide the columns by selecting them, right clicking them and hide. Okay, so let us do one plotting exercise. Okay, so I want to plot distance versus altitude. So this is basically coming from GPS. Your GPS is capable of storing latitude, longitude, and often altitude as well. So even your phone actually reads these from the satellite. Each of our smartphones have nowadays GPS. So let us see on this particular route uh, distance versus altitude profile how it looks like. Yeah. So to plot that, what we do is we can either insert a plot first and then add the data. So let me do that first. So go to insert, and then you have bunch of plots here available. Yeah, there are bar graphs, there are area graphs, uh, waterfall. These are line graphs. Oftentimes we end up using these, but instead of I mean, if you are actually plotting some numbers x and y, it is better to do a xy scatter or a scatter plot. So let us do a scatter plot. So you have an option of just plotting the dots. You have smooth line with markers. You have smooth line without markers. You have line with markers and line without markers. Let us do a line without markers. Once you insert it, it will insert a blank canvas kind of thing. Then you right click on that. You can get something called select data. You can add. You can put a series name, or you can even assign it a cell. And then x-axis. So whenever you are creating a plot, you need a x-axis. So this is x. This is a 2D plot. So x and y is all we need. Okay, so we have plotted this. This is distance in kilometers. So how do we add those things? We select the plot, go to chart design, add quick element, add chart element. Sorry. You can also do quick layouts, which has all those things already there, or you can do it individually. Usually need the axis titles. Probably need chart title, which is already there. And we need legend, because if we are plotting multiple data sets, you will need legend. Right now we don't need legend because we only have one data set. So axis title, we can just change it. I usually prefer this way, the units inside square brackets. Altitude above mean sea level, this is in meters. Okay, so just as an example, this is the route profile, you can say. If that entire route I cut it as a section out of the earth, you will see something like this. Okay, so this is how you create plots. You can expand them. You can also change the axis resolution so that you can zoom into certain areas. So say 20 to 40 kilometers, what was the route like? Or you can even change this resolution to 140 max and 80 minimum to exaggerate the undulations and so on. There are good tools here as well. If you want to change this color of this line or add markers and all, it is very easy to do that. There are predefined styles and colors that you can do directly from here. Otherwise, you can just select the data set and then right click and go to format, and there you can do lot many other things. Okay. And you can also actually do curve fitting in Excel by adding trend line here. If you right click on this, will be available only in XY plots. You can just add trend line. You can have multiple equations that you can try out to fit the trend line. Polynomial, moving average. Moving average is a low pass filter. can see how it smoothens out as I increase the period. Okay, so many things can be done in Excel. All we cannot go through. But these are the basic things: how to enter data, how to program some of the cells with the formulae or the functions, and how to plot. This is a very basic thing. I did not go through all of the functions. I did not go through all of the plots. I will let you explore those. Any questions till now on Excel? As we use the tools, we will go a little more specific also. We will help you out, but just as basics, you can do some own self-study. If you have not used Excel extensively, you can do that over the next week before we meet again next Saturday. You can go through that. Any questions? Okay, we will also go slow when we do our first Excel calculation. We will go slow. Then slowly we will ramp up the speed. Okay. All right. So now let us go through Scilab. Yeah. So let me stop sharing. Actually, I was running something in Scilab. Hopefully it is done. In fact, let me share entire screen. So let me get to a comfortable directory and then we can start. Okay. Mm, Okay. So can everyone open Scilab? If hopefully you have downloaded it and installed it. Anyone who doesn't have Scilab, can you put it on chat? Anyone who doesn't have Scilab or doesn't have access to Scilab right now? Okay. So open the Scilab and hopefully you will have a screen like what you see on my screen. If you don't worry, we will get you to this screen, or then you can even experiment in what layout you will feel comfortable. But first of all, just open this. When you open Scilab, at the minimum, Scilab console should open this thing, if you follow my cursor. Yeah. So just open the Scilab and let me know. Just put opened in the chat box. Okay. So you have the console. Some of you may have everything in place. Some of you may not have. Don't worry. Yeah. At least I think console and probably file browser will be there. Yeah. So now in the console, basically console is like command prompt, but calculation capabilities as well. So you can just try 3 plus 3 or something like that, and it will actually do that calculation. Yeah. So whoever has used MATLAB, this is like MATLAB console. Okay. So how to get the other windows, whatever are not there. So when you are in console, on the top bar, you will have file, edit, control, application, and help, which is a question mark there, right? So these will be there. In that, if you go to applications, you will have a bunch of applications available. Synods, Xcos, MATLAB to Scilab translator, module manager, variable browser, command history, file browser. Yeah. So in that, first turn on the file browser if it is not already there. Just click on it. Yeah. Then you can click on command history. Once you click, it will disappear. You have to again click on application and then click on command history. Then you can click on variable browser. So these three are there in addition to console in my view. Okay, we'll just stop at these three first. Now, once you have opened it, can you confirm on chat window whether you got they all are in one window or they are scattered? So you can put one or multiple based on what you have on your screen. Okay. Okay. You can try out some things in console also. I just did a clear screen because I had multiple commands available there. So clearing screen is very simple. You do CLC and press enter. You type CLC and press enter. It will ask you, do you want to clear the console? You can say yes, and it will clear. Actually, there will be nothing right now, but if you tried out something 1 plus 1, 2 or something like that, you can clear that. Try clearing that. Okay. Also, your variable browser will not have many variables. I have them because I was running something. I have many variables here, but you won't have anything. So don't worry about that. Or you may have ANS, which is basically if you did some calculation there, the answer of that calculation gets stored in this ANS answer. So I did 3 plus 2, so answer is 5 and it got stored in that. Yeah. Okay. So there are couple more applications. Uh, uh, Basically, Scilab console can take a lot of commands or functions directly here, but often we do not actually do that directly in Scilab console. What we do is we either do it through scripting or we actually build the models in a utility called Xcos. Okay, so first let us see Synods, the first one in application. To go to application, you have to be in Scilab console. If you are in file browser, you will not see application. If you are in variable browser, you will not see application. Yeah? You have to click inside Scilab console. The Scilab console bar should be blue. Then you will see applications here. Then you click on applications and then click on Synods. Okay. So when you click on Synods, since I was working, there are many files open, but what you should see is just one untitled blank file open. Okay. If you have opened Synods and you have an untitled blank script file, just put Scilab, Synods, SCINOTES in the chat box. Those who have used MATLAB Simulink before, MATLAB is basically this. It was called MATLAB. Okay. So Synods basically is a scripting tool. The syntax is very similar to MATLAB or C if you have learned that. previously. If not, no issues. It's very simple. Uh, as we do the scripting, we will also provide you how to do that. The variable definition is simple. You just name a variable and say equal to, and you can assign a number, or you can even do a calculation there. So I want to say 12 plus 34. I want to assign it here. So I can do that. Yeah. So what we will use this for is, we will, when we make our models in XCOS, which we will see in a minute, we are going to parameterize those models. What I mean by that is, the model, the physics equations will be all same. Yeah, when I say acceleration into mass is my tractive effort or force, accelerating force or inertial force, F is equal to ma. So I will program F is equal to ma into XCOS, but I can use the same equation for a light truck with say 7 ton mass, or a heavy duty truck, tractor trailer with say 49 ton mass, because what I can do is I can define mass separately outside, and I can use a variable name in my model, which we will see. Don't worry if the words are not making sense. But what we can do is we can build a reusable model, and once we build a reusable model, we can use that model, the same equations we can use for any truck or any vehicle for that matter. You just have to assign appropriate number to that variable. So instead of 7 ton, you assign 42 ton or 49 ton, then that value will be used in the calculation by the model. Okay, so that's called parameterization of the model or reusable models. So for that we will use this. Don't worry again, right now you won't be able to do that if you are not conversant with either Scilab or MATLAB Simulink modeling. So we will do that in next few practical sessions. So now you can minimize nodes. You can also merge nodes into the console if you want. I have not done that. If you want, you can do that, or you can leave it out separate also, not a problem. So I've just minimized nodes. Again, if I come back to console, yeah, and I should be able to use XCOS. Yeah. So then if I go to applications, I have something called XCOS, XCOS. If you click on that, it should bring up a untitled XCOS window like this. Yeah. And probably one more window. If it is not there, don't worry. If it is there, fine. Yeah. A window something like this. Accidentally dragged the participants. So if you click on XCOS, you should get something like this and something like this, untitled XCOS. Yeah. So if you open, either you will get something called palette browser and a untitled XCOS. So if you have opened, if they are two different windows, they are merged, doesn't matter. If you have opened and you have got at least this untitled XCOS, just type XCOS in the chat box. So XCOS is basically the Simulink of MATLAB Simulink. Okay. Yeah, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Waiting for 2, 3 more people. Anyone having trouble opening XCOS? Yeah. So as Shobha is saying, first of all, I hope you have this palette browser. If it is not there, no worries. The untitled XCOS that has opened, in that if you go to view, there will be this palette browser. So if it is not ticked, that means it is not open. You can click on it. If it is ticked, it is already open. You just have to search in the windows. Yeah. So first of all, bring up the palette browser if it is not there. So if you have two windows, palette browser and this untitled XCOS, what you can do is, again the same way, you can merge these two. So you can drag the untitled into the palette browser. So again, you can arrange them vertically, horizontally, doesn't matter. I prefer usually this way, with a split of a small window of palette browser on the left side, and the entire model, the XCOS model, on the right hand side. Okay, it should open by default with a grid as well. I don't know if you can see the dots. My screen might be a little too bright. There is a grid as well with dots, vertical and horizontal. Okay. So is everyone ready with the merged window with the palette browser on the left and this blank file, blank model on the right? If you are, yeah, just give a thumb or just say ready. Okay. So yeah, I think most of you are there, if not all. Okay. So now this blank is where we are going to construct our models block by block. Yeah. So before that, let us familiarize ourselves with what these blocks are on the right hand side, these icons that you see. Yeah. So you have actually many palettes. Yeah. There is recently used blocks which will be empty for you, because you most of you would not have opened it and there would be nothing there. Recently, just to use lot of blocks, they will recently used blocks will come here based on the history of usage. Yeah. So for you, this will be blank. Don't worry. Yeah. Then you have continuous time systems, discontinuities, discrete time systems, lookup tables, event handling, matrix, mathematical operators, electrical, integer, port and subsystems, zero crossing detection, signal routing, signal processing, implicit, annotations, sinks, sources, thermohydraulics, demonstration blocks, and user defined functions. At the minimum, these should be there. If you have downloaded a later version than 6.1 and installed it, you may have something else, something more as well, but these should be there. Yeah. So if you can confirm that all of these palettes are visible to you, just say visible in the chat window. So as I said previously, if you are running into any trouble, please let us know. We will let you share your screen, and we will resolve whatever issues you have. But each one of you should have this on your computer and follow how we do the modeling, because we are not going to give you any models. We are going to have you construct your own models. That's the whole idea behind the modeling portion or the practicals that we have. So the modeling ourselves, doing it ourselves has two primary benefits. One is, as you build the model, you actually also understand what equations we are uh, building or using in the model. So it becomes kind of experience-based learning. And secondly, these models you can actually use for your project execution also. Not can, you will be using. Yeah, all of you will be using these models for executing your projects. Okay, so I think everyone has this palette browser there. Okay, so most often what we'll be using is the mathematical operations. Yeah, sinks and sources. Yeah, let us start with these three first. Yeah, rest we will look at it one by one, but let us first do some simple addition subtraction modeling. Okay, so for that, the sources, what the sources means is, you need a variable or you need a number to appear or to as an input in the model. Yeah, just like in Excel we chose some of the cells as input, we keyed in some numbers there, and then we used a formula to using those numbers to generate outputs. Yeah, so similar way in this XCOS, we want to do the same. Then what we need is the source of the inputs. So sources are basically your inputs. In Simulink, they are actually called inputs. Yeah. So input blocks. So if you go to the sources, you will see a bunch of icons appearing on this right hand side of this split screen in the palette browser. Yeah. So you will have many. You will have uh, many possible inputs. Yeah. So let us start with the simplest of them, which is called const, C-O-N-S-T, which has the label CONST and has a number 1 inside. Yeah. Just drag it, just click on it, drag it into your model. So it will appear here. Alternatively, you can right click on it and you will have a add to, and you will have your untitled XCOS there. So you can click on it, it gets added automatically. Only thing is it gets added on the left hand top corner. Whereas if you drag it, you can drag it wherever you want. Of course, once it gets added, you can also drag it. Okay, this is very basic navigation. So just add one constant here and let me know. You can put ready once you are done. So this is a dedicated session just to learn Scilab, how things work in Scilab. So once you have the constant here, I think, yeah, most of you have it. What you can do is you can create copy of it. Yeah, right click, copy. Again, right click outside now and paste. Yeah, it will create a copy of it. You can also press the control key on your keyboard and drag this. It will also create a copy. That's another way, a shortcut. Keep the control key pressed on your keyboard and then drag. It will create copy. Okay. Once you have copied it, you can also see how you can change the number. So if you double click on it, you will get a dialog like this. What is the value? So instead of 1, if you want to put something else, you can put, I don't know, some number, 12. Okay. It will appear 12 here. Okay. Other one, again, you can change some other number. It will appear. Okay. Now let us add these numbers. How do we add these numbers? So we go to now mathematical operations. In the palettes, mathematical operations. Okay. And in that, you will have again lot of blocks there. Yeah. So scroll down. You will see a big sum also there, but scroll down till you see summation block, which has a sigma, capital sigma sign inside the block. And the label is summation, SUMMATION. Drag this into your model. Yeah, once you have dragged the summation block into your model, say sum into the, type sum into the chat box. Okay. So once you have the summation block, now you see uh, the constant blocks that we brought in from the sources. They have only a output port, which is a arrow going out of that port. Yeah. Whereas the summation block has both input ports, which has arrows coming inside, and the output port, which is going outside on the right hand side. Okay. So this is a operations block. This is a input block. So input block, there is only a port coming out of that. Yeah. So now let us connect the output of each of these constant blocks to the two inputs of the summation block. Okay. How you connect it is, you click on the output port of the block of the constant block and drag a connector. It will come in blue. Yeah. And then if you click, it will let you bend the connector also. Yeah. And then wherever you want to bend it again, you just click again and then bring it to the port. Yeah. If you want to do direct, that also works. This is just for cleanliness. You can connect directly also. There is nothing different between these two other than how it looks. These two operations, these two connectors are basically same. This is signals. So there is no, the length of the connector doesn't matter. There is no loss of signal. Once you have done that, you can just copy, either you can add one more constant block, or you can just copy the one which you have added and paste it. Right click and paste. It will automatically create a copy. Another way is you can select the block, keep your control key pressed and drag the block. It will create a copy. That's another quick way. Once you have these three blocks ready, just connect the output of the constant block. There is only output out of the constant block to the input of the summation block. You can connect directly or you can bend the line, bend the connector. To bend the connector, what we do is we drag the connector out straight without leaving the mouse button. Then we leave the mouse button where we want to bend it. Then move the mouse. Again, if you want to bend it, you click once and it will bend there. And then bring it to the input port. Once you bring it to the input port, it becomes green, you just click and it will connect. If it doesn't become green and if you leave it there, it may seem like it has connected, but it will not connect. Okay, let me show you that. If I leave like this, mostly it will not let you leave it like this. Yeah, but if it leaves like this without getting the green, that means it is not connected and you will have this thread like hanging to your cursor. Yeah, so although it right now seems like it is connected, but it is not. Okay, so in that case, what you do is you press escape to get rid of that thread and you start a new one. Yeah, yeah. And Soma has given a very good tip. You can also to tidy this up, you can also try pressing O on your keyboard. So for example, if I connect this, Control Z works, undo, it works in Scilab also. That's a lifesaver often. So if I connect this directly here and I want to get it little tidy, I can press O on my keyboard and it will make it. How many people have OCD on formatting, looks and feel, PowerPoint presentation, all boxes should be correctly aligned, size and all that? How many people have that? Just a show of hands. Yeah. So I'm just like you. So I always want these to be aligned properly, symmetrical and all that. I spend too much time around it, but I can't help it. Otherwise, I can't think. But if you can work without it, no problem. You can have that model. Only thing is, if it is too cluttered up, it becomes difficult for you to debug, or worse still, difficult for us to debug for you. So at least to start with, keep it clean till you have the confidence that I will be able to debug it myself. Then you can do whichever way you want. But I think by then you will have gotten into the habit of doing it tidily anyway. This summation block, if you see properly, there is a plus and a minus sign by default. It is actually not a summation block, but a subtraction block by default. Yeah. So basically, you double click on the summation block, it will bring up this dialog box. Yeah. So it has three inputs here. First input is what type of data, what data type is coming in. So let's not touch that. If you are aware of programming data types and all, basically you have int, then complex number and real double. Real double is what we use. Most of our numbers in our calculations are real doubles. Yeah. So we will keep it as 1, which is real double. Then the number of inputs of or sign vector. So what it means is how many inputs you want into this summation block. So the size of this vector, right now, what is the size of this vector? How many items are there in this vector? Anyone? 2. Yeah. So basically, that is why you see 2 inputs available here. Yeah. And in that vector, you also have 1 and minus 1. Yeah. 1 corresponds to plus, minus 1 corresponds to minus here. Yeah. If I remove this minus sign here, yeah, and click OK, now it is going to be just adding these two. Now it will be 15. Previously it was subtraction by default, so it would have been 9. Okay. So I have just reopened the summation block. Now in that, you can actually add input ports also. The way to do that is put another semicolon after the last number there, yeah, and put 1 or -1, yeah. So now I have a vector of 3, yeah, and once you are there, just click OK and see what happens to your summation block. So it will have 3 inputs, and if you have put minus sign here, -1 in the last, you will see minus sign here in the last input port, the bottommost input port. Okay, you can resize this summation block. Yeah, you can add an input also. Again, third constant I have added. Yeah, so now this has 3 inputs, and I have added 3 inputs. So if you are ready, just put 3 in the chat box. I will give you time, no worries. Some of you may have to see the screen and then go do that on your Scilab or MATLAB. That's fine. So once you are ready, just let me know. Just put 3 in the chat box. THREE or number 3 is also fine. The size of the vector, the number of items or elements inside the vector determines how many input ports you have in the summation box. Yeah, and then the sign of the vector determines what is the sign of that particular input in the summation box. So basically it is doing a summation. But what if you put a -1, what it will do is it will multiply with -1 that input and then do the summation. So in essence, it will subtract.
Okay.
So if you want the second element to be subtracted, you can put -1 as the second element, and you can put +1 or just 1, remove the minus sign from the third element. So it will accordingly change here. You can try these things, not a problem. Let us come down to something called cscope. CSCOPE. Yeah, it will have a black input port and a red input port. Let us bring that in, pull that in, or right click and add to the model. Let's position it in front of the summation block output. Okay, and then let's connect the summation output to this cscope. One, two, three, four, 5. Just repeating where cscope is. It is in sinks. You have to scroll down a bit, and probably halfway down, you will see cscope in the middle. So let us move on. Now the C-scope also has a red input. So basically what this C-scope does is it plots whatever is input here with respect to time. So it needs the whatever we want to plot as well as the time as input. Yeah, and that time, if you see that there is a color distinction also. So a clock has to be put there, a red clock. So for that, again we go to palette browser sources now. Yeah, in the sources at the top you will see a clock underscore C, which is red in color as well. So just bring that in. Okay, and then just connect the red output of the clock to the red input of the C-scope. Once you are ready, just put clock in the chat box. Once again, this red clock is basically in sources palette. Yeah, in the palette browser, you go to sources, is the second element there, clock underscore C. That you pull it into the simulation, into the model, and then just connect the red output of the clock to the red input of the C-scope. Okay. So, all right. So your first model is ready. What we can also look at is in the C-scope. If you double click on the C-scope, it will bring up a big parameter box. It will have a bunch of parameters that can be input here. So the first one is basically the color and the marker type identifier. Let's not touch that right now. Output window number, again, leave it at automatic -1. Output window position, you can actually say where you want that window to be on your screen. Let's again leave it at automatic. Output window size is 600 by 400. Again, if you want a different size window, you can do that. Again, leave it for the moment at 600 to 400. Why minimum? Why minimum is by default, this plot will pop up once you start the simulation. Yeah. So it will readjust the scale of its y-axis based on what you give as y minimum and y maximum. By default, it is -15 to 15, y min and y max. So this -15 to 15 is what it will appear. Leave it at this right now. You can leave it or you can change it if you want. So particularly when we know what we are plotting and what would be the numbers of that. So for example, if you are plotting vehicle speed and your vehicle speed is going to be more than 60-70 kph maybe. So we are not probably simulating anything in reverse. So -15 doesn't make any sense. So you can change it to 0 as y minimum and 70 or 80 as the y max. Yeah. Even if you don't change it after the simulation is done, we will see how you can resize the plot. Even if you don't do anything, you can still view it properly, no worries. But this is something that you will be able to do only after the simulation is done. Yeah. Before the simulation, while the simulation is running, you will not be able to scale. Then there is refresh period. Yeah, leave it at 30 for the moment. What it shows is if you are running a simulation longer than 30 seconds, but you want to keep seeing the latest 30 seconds in your window, in your C-scope, then you just set the refresh period at 30. Or if you want to see it every 10 seconds, then you can put it as that. If you don't want the window to refresh, you have to put whatever is your time of simulation that you are running. If you are running 300 seconds simulation, that is 5-minute simulation, you can actually put 300 there. So the unit of that is seconds. Yeah. Then you have buffer size. Again, the unit of buffer size is in seconds, not in the memory. bytes or bits, it is in seconds. So how much buffering you want this to do. So what it means is, while it is displaying, it will display 20 seconds of data at a time. Okay. So right now it is at 20. So you can leave it at 20 for the moment. Usually we again set it to whatever, because we want to see the entire plot, then we set it to whatever is the refresh period. So if the refresh period is 300 seconds, we set the buffer size also as 300 seconds. It just takes up that much RAM, but it is very small. I am running multiple plots with refresh buffer sizes of 40,000 and all. No problem. It usually will work. Then you have accept herited events. Let it be at 0. It actually doesn't work with 1. What it means is, instead of putting in a clock, red clock as input there, you just ask the scope to work with the inherited, meaning whatever is the time-based signal that is input in the black port, it will use that. But let's not do that. Let it be 0. I have seen it usually doesn't work with 1 here. And then you have name of the scope, which is by default blank. So let us name it. Let us name it sum, S-U-M. Yeah, just put in the last field name of the scope. You put it as sum. Yeah, and press OK. Once you do that, the sum name will appear below the block, below the C scope. Yeah, when you have multiple graphs and you do not name them, you will not know what is what. This sum, as you will see once we run the simulation, this will appear as a label to the popped up window with the signal, the time plot, time-based plot. So if you put each and every name or label to each and every C scope, you will have it much more organized and you don't have to think what exactly is this. Yeah, make it a habit to name the graph always. This is the bare minimum thing you should do. Other things you can always scale and do stuff, but this, and then of course the refresh period and buffer size on whatever is the simulation period that you are using. Just always do these 3 things. Okay. Once you are ready, just type sum in the chat box. SUM. Okay. I think we are all ready. Okay, cool. Then let us also look at this clock, red clock that we added. Yeah, double click on that. It will open a box with 2 fields, period and initialization time. Okay, so by default it is at 0.1. What it means is 0.1 seconds, 100 milliseconds. Yeah, so period means at what resolution you want the C scope to plot. So every 0.1 seconds or every 100 milliseconds, it will plot a point in the scope once you run the simulation. Yeah. Sometimes what happens is we are studying phenomenon which are much faster. So for example, a battery current impulse test. Yeah. So that will be the whole event itself will be few milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds. If you use this period there, you will not see anything, or you will see just one dot and then you are back up. The whole impulse profile, nothing you will see. Yeah. So that is why then in that case, you will come here and change the period to a lower number. So 0.001 or something like that. Yeah. Depending upon what event and what transients you are plotting, you should put that period here. Yeah. And then initialization time is what is the first number or at what seconds you want your first point to be plotted. Yeah. So you can put that at say right now it is also at 0.1. So there will be nothing plotted at 0 seconds, nothing plotted at 0.05 seconds, nothing plotted at 0.09 seconds. The first point that will appear is 0.1 seconds. Okay. If you put it at 1, then nothing will be plotted up to 1 second. And from 1 second onwards, you will see the plot appear. Yeah. So that is the initialization time. Okay. Right now, you can leave it at 0.1, 0.1. We are not plotting anything transient. You can leave it at that. Okay. Just wanted to let you know. Okay. So now once we are ready with this input, operation and output visualization, then we go to simulation in the top bar. Yeah, file, edit, view, simulation. In simulation, there is the first item is setup. Just click on that. It will bring up set parameters dialog box. Yeah. If you have come there, just put set in the chat box. All right. Yeah. So it has a lot of parameters or fields there. Yeah. Final integration time, real time scaling, integrator absolute tolerance, integrator relative tolerance, and so on. Lot of things. There is also a solver chooser. You have a drop down here. You can choose solvers also. Right now, we are not going to touch anything here. Yeah. It is currently using Newton's backward difference formula solver. So solver is basically what numerical method is applied to solve the equations. If there is any looping or if there is any, we'll come to what looping is in the next session. So if there is any time-based resolution to be done or convergence to be done, the solver will be used, which is basically one of the numerical methods, which is backward difference formula of Newton. Okay, there are many other options available there. If you are familiar with what they are, you are free to try them out. Otherwise, leave it by default at this sundials CVODE BDF Newton. So do not change anything there. Yeah? Then you have maximum integration time interval and maximum step size and all that. Leave all of those as it is. The only thing that you are currently concerned with is the final integration time, the first field. Yeah, it has 30 in it. It's written in scientific form, so it is 3 into 3.0 e power 01. So what it means is 3 into 10 power 1, which is 3 into 10, which is 30. Now you need not enter in that form here. Yeah. So let us change it to 10. So just select it, or you can delete it, make it blank, and then put 10 there, 10. Yeah. And once you put the 10 and click somewhere else, it is going to change that to the scientific number again, 1 into e power 01. Yeah. So don't worry about that. It will take 10. Yeah. Oftentimes we don't understand what it is put there. So always you can just, to be sure, just select that and again put what you want it to be there in numbers. And then you click OK. So once you are ready, just put 10 in the chat box. Okay, great. So you are all set to run your first simulation. This is your model, as simple as it may seem. Yeah, but this is a model. Yeah, you have programmed to add 3 constant values or add 2 and subtract 1 and then plot it. Okay, so how to run the simulation? So there is a play button here, a triangle here on the toolbar. Yeah, in that, if you mouse over it, it says start. So just click on it. So it will show simulation in progress at the bottom left corner. It will pop up this C-scope and it will show show this sum. So now you see what you named as sum, it has appeared on the label of this plot or C-scope. Okay. If you have got this C-scope with whatever number, a constant number up to 10 seconds and then nothing else, just put sum in the chat box. Okay. So let us study this C-scope for a moment before we go back into the model. So this has plotted this in black. So the color, if you want to change, now you can go in the C-scope and change. It won't reflect here right away. The next time you run the simulation, it will reflect. Yeah, I can show you if I have plotted in my other simulation. This is basically battery energy. I have plotted this region energy in red. The energy that is taken out of the battery in black, and the total energy, so which will be black minus red, is the green one. Yeah, so you can plot different colors also. You can even put dotted lines and all that. That you have to do in going into the C-scope and actually changing the color number there. So right now, let's not get into that. Just to tell you that you can actually do these things. Yeah. So now whatever you have got right now, yeah, you have lot of tools also available on that C-scope. Yeah. The first one, if you mouse over, it is rotate. Not something we use often, but it is there. Then the second tool is zoom area. You can select a zoom area and zoom into that particular area. Right now it is a constant number, it doesn't require a zooming. But if you have a transient thing, you want to zoom into one particular area and see how it is varying, you can zoom into that using the zoom area. Then you have original view. So once you zoom, and let me zoom it. So the way you do it is take that tool, click on that tool, bring here into, when you bring your cursor here into you and you click once, it will start making a box. Yeah. This is the zoom area. So once I click again, it will zoom into that area. Okay. Now you have zoomed in, but there is nothing you want to further see here. You want to go back to the original one. So that's the third tool from the left, original view. Yeah. If you click on that, you come back to your original view. Okay. Then you have rescale, reframe to contents. Yeah. Sometimes what happens is you may have chosen minus 15 to 15 as your axis, but your plot is actually going to 40 or 50 or minus 60. Then you have to reframe to the contents. So if you click on it, it will do the reframing for both x and y axis. So let me click on it. Now you see it has reframed to 12, showing 12, and only for 10 seconds. Previously it was showing the graph for 30 seconds. Now it is only showing for 10 seconds. Yeah. Then you have, so till here it is all zooming and viewing tools. Yeah, one more method I see some of you employing is joining on two devices. So that one device you can see my screen and another device you can, or other computer you can keep working parallelly. So that's the third way. You can have multiple screens, multiple devices, or in the same screen, as Soma said, you can use the left right arrow to switch. Okay. So now let us also see some more tools are there. Okay? So the next one, the fifth one from the left, which looks like a chat box. Yeah. Toggle data tip mode. So click on that. Yeah. Once you click on that, it stays pressed. Yeah. Then you bring your cursor inside and click on anywhere on the line, the curve. Yeah. It will create a data tip which shows x-axis at that particular point, sorry, the x value at that particular point and the y value. So for me, it shows a 3.927 seconds and the y value is 12. The y value is going to be 12 for me all across. Yeah. So if you have managed that, you can even drag this data tip up and down the curve. Yeah. Or you can create one more data type somewhere else by clicking separately. You can create as many as you want. If you have created too many, you can delete them also. The box that comes up with the values, you can right click on that box and you have options delete all data types or delete nearest data type or delete the last data type. You can do anything you want. Okay. Understood how to use data tip? If you have understood, just put data tip in the chat box. Okay. Most of you got it. Yeah. Then you have more options there. Toggle curve data modification. Don't use much that. You can even pan the graph with the next one. Move objects. You can move the curve left or right. And then you have the help browser. We don't use that. Mostly we use reframe to contents and the data tip. Yeah, those are the ones which we need. By the way, have you noticed that the first point that we get is not at 0, like I said? Yeah. There is a slight gap between the y-axis and the start of the curve. Yeah, everyone notice this? Now, if I would have made the initialization time as 0.01 or 001, it would have started much closer and you probably wouldn't even notice that it is far away. It is little away, not far away, little away. Okay. So any questions on this very basic model and C-scope, how to read the data on the C-scope? Any questions? So you can see the first point that you can get if I move the data tip to the left, the maximum I can move is to 0.1. X is equal to 0.1. I cannot go further left. I cannot go to 0.01, for example, for X. Yeah. That is because the initialization time of the C scope is 0.1. Yeah. Now I can actually change that. I can go, just to exaggerate that, let me go to 0.5. Okay. And rerun the simulation. Yeah. So now you see the line is starting at 0.5. If I put my data tip here, and drag it, it won't go further left from 0.5. Okay, so that's what initialization time in the red clock means, from where the plot will start. That's all it means. Yeah. Then coming to the simulation setup final integration time. So what this final integration time means is how long the simulation should run. Yeah. So we ran it for 10 seconds. We can run it for 30 seconds. We can run it for 5 seconds. In this case, it doesn't matter. But when we are running certain predefined cycles, so then the cycle time will be there. Some cycles may go to 100 seconds, 200 seconds, 1000 seconds, 10,000 seconds. So that cycle time, we have to make sure the final integration time is that cycle time, so that the entire cycle runs and nothing else runs. So first of all, if you have a cycle 1000-second cycle and you put 10 as a final integration time, it will only run the first 10 seconds of that 1000-second cycle. Okay. If you put 10,000 as the final integration time for a 1000-second cycle, it will run the cycle and then it will unnecessarily keep running some random values till 10,000 seconds. So there is no point in doing more than that. There is no point. I mean, you lose the data doing less than that. So what you do is whatever is your cycle time that you have defined in your inputs, that is the time you should put in the final integration time. Okay. So I have some examples here. I was running some simulation of a truck. So now if I go to simulation setup here, you can see it is 14,994 seconds. So that's what my cycle was. If I go to my cycle, it was this. Yeah, you can see I have put time versus speed here, vehicle speed, and my last point on the cycle is 14994. That's why I gave the same number here. That's the utility of this final integration type. Okay, does that answer your question? Both the questions?
Yes, yes, it is clarified now. Thank you.
Any other question before we play a quick game, 10 minutes game, because we have 15 minutes to go. Any other quick questions? Okay, so let us do a quick modification to this operation. Instead of summation, let us do multiplication. Now you have to search in the palette browser where the multiplication is and bring it in and connect the inputs. So first of all, you will start with deleting this summation block. Yeah, and now you have to instead do multiplication of 12, 3 and 3 or whatever numbers you have there. Yeah, so start doing it yourself. So what you have to do is bring in, instead of the summation block we had, bring in a multiplication block, connect the inputs. So first of all, that multiplication block will probably also have only 2 inputs. So make it 3 and then connect the 3 inputs to the three numbers that we have, constants, to the 3 input ports of the multiplication block, and then the output to the C scope. Yeah. So there it is, you can see there will be a multiplication, there will be multiple uh, options for multiplication. So you have product and circular product also. You can choose any one, that shouldn't be a problem. Just taking product. So like when I brought in sum, it had two inputs, yeah, and one was in there, one was plus, one or minus. Here it is, one is multiplication and one is division, the signs, yeah. So for that you double click on the block, and then you will see again here a vector. So the size of the vector again determines how many input ports the multiplication or the product block will have. And the sign determines, if it is a minus sign, it will be division. If it is a plus sign, it will be multiplication. So what you have to do is make it 1, 1, 1, so that it multiplies everything. Click OK. So now you will have 3 ports, and then you connect each of the 3 inputs. And then you connect the output. We'll just revert this to 0.1. And you can change the name of the C scope from sum to product, just as an exercise. And then once you are done, you can run it. Yeah. Now your scope probably doesn't show anything because it is set to minus 15 to 15, whereas we are multiplying 12 into 3 into 3. So basically you are going to get, I think, 108. So for that you have to reframe to contents, then you will get 108. It will be visible. So let us close this and let us try to parameterize this. Yeah, we have put the numbers here directly, right? 12, 3, 3. Yeah. So let us parameterize this. How will we parameterize this? So we say instead of 12, we will say variable 1, variable 2, variable 3. So let us say A1, A2, A3. So how do we initialize them? We can go to the Scilab prompt. Okay. You can go to Scilab prompt. Let me clear screen. Yeah. In the Scilab prompt, you can put A1 is equal to 12 and press enter. Okay. Then you can put A2 is equal to 3. Press enter. And then A3 is equal to 3. Press enter. Okay. So whatever you type out in the Scilab console, you can also do the same in the SciNotes. That's also possible. So if you go to SciNotes, you go to SciNotes, you can actually do the same thing. You can say A1 is equal to 12. You can put a semicolon if you do not want it to appear on the prompt. A2 is equal to 3. And now for just the heck of it, I will put A3 equal to 4. So that we should know that something is also getting executed here. Once you do that, you can select this and right click and execute, evaluate selection with echo, or you can push the play button, but it will ask you first to save the file with some name. That is why, so it will say you need to save modifications before executing. So you can do that, or you can cancel and just select this and evaluate selection. That also works. Once you evaluate the selection, you can come back to the Scilab console and you will see that execution happened, and you will see now A3 is 4. A1 and A2 are same, 12 and 3, but A3 has now become 4. Great. So now let us use these variables into the model. Yeah, let's go back to our XCOS model with the multiplication now in there. Yeah. And now instead of 12, you can double click on that block of 12. Instead of value there, instead of putting 12, let us put A1 and click OK. The next block, you can put A2 and click OK. In the third block, you can put A3 and click OK. Yeah. So you will have A1, A2, A3 now as inputs instead of 12, 3, 3. Okay. And now you can again run the simulation and see whether it works. Yeah. 144 is the answer we expect. If you have used the same numbers as me, otherwise whatever is the multiplication that you will see. Okay, so you can continue this practice beyond also over the weekend. The more you practice, the more familiar you will be what is where. And you can start doing some simple things like what we did. Don't go into transient yet unless you have done this before. Just a simple input and then doing some basic calculations and getting the outputs displayed. Yeah.